just trying to keep up with the times. And everyone else seems to be getting it right, except for you. What should you do? Well, shake it up, well, shake it up, remember your dreams. Well, talk to God, well, talk to God, you're closer than you think. Well, shake it up, well, shake it up, follow your heart. It's never too late to do what you love. Shake it up. Thank you for dancing. Do you ever ask yourself what you really want to do? And I mean from your heart, not from your head, not a should. When you were a child, what made you smile, made you feel good? Do that again. You know why? It might be your calling. Yeah! Well, shake it up, well, shake it up, remember your dreams. Talk to God, well, talk to God, closer than you think. Well, shake it up, well, shake it up, follow your heart. It's never too late to do what you love. Shake it up. Time just disappears when you do what you are here to do. It's meaningful and it's natural. You've been sleeping half your life. Now open up your eyes and tell me what makes you special. Just do it. Shake it. Shake it. Well, shake it up. Shake it up. Remember your dreams. Talk to God. Talk to God. Closer than you think. Shake it up. Shake it up. Follow your heart. It's never too late to do what you love. Shake it up.
Good to be here. We did the first service, had a lot of fun. I like the feel of this place, yes? Feels good. So, this is the first talk I have done here where they have instructed me to stick with the topic. In the past, we've been able to negotiate. And if I said I really don't want to do that, they'd say, okay, do what you want. But this time, they sent me an email and said, we want you to talk about the holy day that this is. How many of you know what holy day this is? Rosh Hashanah, Jewish holy day. This is actually the eve of Rosh Hashanah. Tomorrow is the actual holy day. What does that mean, Rosh Hashanah? Anybody? New Year. Come on, there's got to be somebody with a Jewish background in here. It's the new year. It's the equivalent of our January, New Year's Eve, and New Year's Day. Rosh in Hebrew means head or beginning, and Hoshana is a year, a new era. So it's like the new mind or the new era is beginning in Judaism. And in order to talk about this topic with you, and actually it's a whole calendar. The month of September, our month of September in Judaism is the 7th month, and it is the holy month. The whole month really is holy. 3 of their most sacred holidays take place during this month. And Rosh Hashanah, or the New Year, begins it. And then 10 days from now, anybody know what the Rosh Hashanah or the New Year, how it climaxes in 10 days? Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement or the Day of Amends. And there's a process there. I call it the original 12-step program. Because really those 10 days do what the 12-step program does in recovery. So we're going to talk about that. But before we look at what it means, I want to tell you a couple of stories. And I'm going to do the before and after version of the stories. I want to tell the before version of these two stories, and then talk about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the whole Jewish holy day, and what it means in relation to these stories, and then how the stories end based on this Jewish holiday of the New Year and Atonement. So here are the two stories. First one is this, true story. About 3 weeks ago, I was with my dad, who's 92, dying of heart failure. He's in good health, except his heart is giving out. And I didn't give this much information before in the first service, but in April, I lost my brother. My brother died. On the very day that we buried my brother, my dad's wife passed away. My father was taken to urgent care, and for the last 4 months, I've been with him on and off in the midst of many medical pathologizings. Many of you understand this sort of situation. In addition to that, my wife, Cheryl, her parents are also both in the middle of medical pathologizings. Her father is dying of heart failure, mother has cancer, going through chemo. So we have 3 family members that live close to us that are going through these kinds of situations. You understand? So anyway, there's been a lot of stress. For the last 4 months, I have spent a lot of time with my dad. Now, my dad is a wonderful man. Anybody know what conjunction is coming next? But, and, my father treats me like I'm 12 no matter what time it is, and he still does that. My father is a wonderful man, and he has this sort of ability to poke the bear, and I'm the bear. And he does that by criticizing, by bringing up all the past mistakes that I've made, from childhood clear into adulthood, including last week. Most of the time, I can take it, especially now that he is so fragile. Do you understand? But he just pokes and pokes. Any of you have a parent? Don't raise your hand if they're here with you. But you know what I'm talking about. It could be a mother or a father. So anyway, this has been the situation for the last 4 months. I've spent a lot of time with him, going to urgent care, staying there with him, going to his place, working on the house. He's still at home, and getting this sort of poking treatment. About 3 weeks ago, he poked one too many times. We were sitting at the dinner table. Actually, he had gone in to sit in his chair, and I blew it. I blew my top. And, depth psychology, which is my thing, Carl Jung talks about complexes. You all have heard that term. And Jung says a complex is another ego that dwells within your soul that usually stays in the basement watching television. Right? Old Seinfeld reruns, whatever. It's down there watching television, but then every once in a while, it comes up like a jack-in-the-box, shoves you off of the stage, takes over, and has its day. And then it retires back to the basement. You come back on stage and go, what the hell just happened? And the person that you did it to is saying the same thing. Well, when you have 2 complexes coming out between 2 people at the same time, it's a really ugly mess. I got poked. I started on my dad, and I mean, this was not just a little bit of an angry outburst. This was a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde moment. I just got angry with him. And I took 4 weeks, maybe 60 years worth of stuff, and started going at him, and he came back. But as I was going at him, I noticed that he's 92 years old and he's very fragile. He's not the fighter he used to be. And I could tell he looked a little scared, but he still fought ferociously. It didn't stop me. I continued with him. And it went on for several minutes. My partner, Cheryl, was sitting there watching the whole thing, unfortunately for her. And she got to the ringside seat of this encounter. And I left the house in a huff and drove from Enumclaw back to Tacoma. And the whole way home, I was going through all kinds of internal stuff. You know what I'm talking about? I was right. No, you weren't. Yes, you were. He poked you. He deserved it. No, he didn't. You understand? I'll tell you the last part of the story in a few minutes. Now, the second story And you'll see how these relate to the Jewish holiday. Hopefully. I need my glasses. Did I put them over here? Thank you. Yeah, that's nice. You can borrow glasses when you get this age. So this second story comes from Eddie Watkins Jr. Anybody remember Eddie? Yeah. And it's important. He put this on Facebook last week. Some of you may have seen this Facebook post from him. Very powerful. For those of you that don't know him, he's an African-American musician par excellence. And the African-American part is very important for this posting. So he's now in Florida, and here's the first part of his story. Here's what he posted last week. He starts with, "Am I a racist? Don't think so. Maybe a little. Are you? While stopping for fuel on our way back from Unity Church of Creative Living, where I serve as musical director, and Marianne, his wife, works with the children's ministry, I had a profound realization as we stopped at a gas station, deep in the Ocala National Forest, where you occasionally see Confederate flags and bumper stickers. The station was also a little grocery store where 90% of the products were various combinations of meat, flour, sugar, with a selection of fried meat under a heat lamp at the checkout. A few folks were riding around the store in their little shopping scooters. Lots of large people shopping there. You get the picture. While waiting in line to pay for my gas and get our Sunday scratch-off ticket, there was a gentleman in line in front of me. He was dressed in camouflage pants, sandals, had a hunting knife, and he was buying a six-pack of beer. I automatically sized him up as a redneck Republican racist. And I shifted from my music director, spiritual songwriter mode. You all know what I'm talking about. This is a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde moment. This is a complex. All prejudices are complexes that live in the basement. We walk around as nice spiritual people, and you ask, do you have any prejudices? No, I go to the Center for Spiritual Living. We love everybody. Eddie Watkins Jr. is awake enough to know that he is a spiritual man and he has complexes that come up out of the basement. He said, I assumed automatically, I sized him up as a redneck Republican racist and shifted from my spiritual songwriter. Why? And he asks the question, why did I do that? I'll read the rest of the story in a few minutes. Now, the reason I told you these two stories is because what they have in common is a human being who's living his or her life, and then suddenly they're confronted with an aspect of themselves that they're not too pleased with. I'm not going to ask, yeah, I will. How many of you can identify with this? You don't have to raise your hand. I saw 2 hands go up. If I had 4, I'd put them up. We human beings are a work in progress. We all know that. We say it all the time. And that's what the Jewish holiday of Rosh Hashanah, that goes through a 10-day period, starting this evening, goes through a 10-day period and ends with Yom Kippur. Yom in Hebrew is day. Kippur is atonement or amends, making things right. So this 10-day stretch is basically a 12-step program annually for Jews, where essentially they can come in the evening, tonight, the beginning of Rosh Hashanah, the new year. They will come together as families and they will eat sweets, honey, apples, probably nowadays, chocolate cake and all kinds of goodies. But they come and they remember the sweetness of the past 365 days. It's a celebration of the old year. After the celebration of sweetness, however, when the next day comes, tomorrow begins for these Jewish folks, it will be a holy day to reflect on the past year to see if there was anything that needed to change. See how this is fitting into the two stories? And so for the next 10 days, they're in a reflective mode. Let me read just a little bit from Leviticus chapter 23, which talks about this very holy day, this period. Leviticus chapter 23. The Lord spoke to Moses and said, "Speak to the people of Israel, saying, in the 7th month, on the first day of the month," which in the Hebrew calendar, that's what this is, "you shall observe a day of complete rest, a holy convocation commemorated with trumpet blasts." And if the complex comes out of the basement, it's like a trumpet blast. You understand? It gets your attention. "You shall not work at any occupation, and you shall present the Lord's offering by fire." The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Now after 10 days comes the Day of Atonement." Leviticus 23. Now incidentally, I don't know if this is significant or not. This morning when I got up and got ready to come here, the clock on the bathroom wall had stopped. Anybody see the numbers it stopped on? 23. Leviticus 23. Now, of course, it's completely coincidence, I'm sure. Or is it? Remember the Steve Martin movie, The Jerk, I think it was, where he looked at the picture on the wall and said, "God, show me a sign." And the picture started spinning, and the breeze coming at him blows his hair back. The picture stops, and he says, "God never shows me a sign." Leviticus 23, this may be a sign that what's going on in this Jewish holy day is significant for me, for each of us in this room, and maybe even for our entire nation. Because during this 10-day period, essentially what goes on is this. As I said, you eat the sweets to commemorate the past year, but then you take a few moments, and it says you take a Sabbath. You stop from, do you remember what I read? You stop from all occupations. Because you know what occupations do? They occupy us. They take us away from reflection, from putting our attention on things. So basically what's going on in this Hebrew commemoration is stop doing the things you usually do and take 10 days to reflect on the old year. Now, in the updated version of Leviticus 23, it says, turn off Facebook. Stop tweeting. Turn off the computer, turn off the television, turn off for 10 days. Could you do that? No, I hear that. 1 day. 1 hour. By the way, after they sign in. By the way, on that topic, this is an article by a Jewish woman that I found online. Her name is Maim. And she's talking about her New Year's resolutions for Rosh Hashanah for this month. And one of her resolutions is this. The phone. Dear Lord, help me stop my phone. I know I've said it before, and I will likely have to say it again, but I get so compulsive about checking email and texts as soon as I see them pop up. It's bad, it's wrong, it doesn't feel good. It takes me away from the present. I must stop, or at least cut back. So, occupation, essentially what this Jewish holy day is about is stop long enough to reflect on what's been going on in the old year in order to change for the new year. What needs to change? Very difficult stuff. So that's basically the purpose of this next 10 days. Stop. What's the next word? Reflect. And then change. But specifically, make atonement. Make amends. Which means you have to do more than change your mind. What else do you have to change? The situation. In other words, you do something to make the situation different than it was before. Now, I want to finish my two stories with that in mind, because basically what happened with me and what happened with Eddie Watkins Jr. is what I call a depth psychological Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur moment. You see, this material found in the Bible, and this is what I do in the Bible class, watching God grow up, is we look at this material that sticks in a lot of people's craws because they hate the book of Leviticus and they hate all things religious, and to see that really behind or underneath all of these teachings, there are these archetypal principles that can be used every single moment. Rosh Hashanah is not just a yearly ritual, it can be a daily practice once we realize that most of us each day come into situations where we do something and little Dr. Jekyll or sets aside and Mr. Hyde comes up and does its thing and then retreats, and we will either stop, reflect, make amends, or we will not. That's what this holiday is about. It's not about the once a year thing. It's about this process of the soul changing. Now, let's go to my story. After I left the house and had this huge battle with my father, I got in the car and drove home. Cheryl was with me. And she happens to be one of these kinds of people that keeps her nose pretty much in her business, which is really annoying. Because typically when I've been in a relationship and I've done something really stupid like I did there, or something that was just not right, and I'm in a relationship, you know what happens when I leave the situation from the person I'm with? They tell me how I should have done it or what I shouldn't have done. You understand what I'm talking about? That's better. Because then I can fight with them and become even more right. Silence is hell. Because what are you left with? Your own fucking reflection. You understand? So I'm driving home and I'm wishing she would say something. And I knew she won't. Because she just minds her own business. Doesn't mean she doesn't care. She's just, for some reason, it's like, that's yours. It stinks, you carry it. So I'm driving home and I'm reflecting on this. And you all know this experience of reflection after you've had an experience with another person that some part of you is going, that's wrong, you shouldn't have done it. Get back in the damn basement and don't come out again. Stop it. But then the other voice says, you were wrong. You need to apologize. I ain't apologizing. He's been poking me for 4 effing months. He deserved it. Well, maybe he did deserve it, but you understand. So this is reflection. Reflection is not this sort of, oh, I'm in reflective bliss. Reflection is typically a mess. It's the mess before the blessing or the cursing. So I'm in this reflective moment and I get home and I'm trying to find ways to distract myself. I go to my computer, start doing some research on things, but this reflection keeps coming back. You see, I'm not reflecting at this point. Reflecting is doing me. And I'm going through this, what should I do? Should I apologize? No, if you apologize, you're giving in. You understand. Well, finally, after 2 or 3 hours, I typed out 6 or 7 different versions of an email. You ever do that? And then I sat on it and I looked at it. And it was an apology. But I had to erase the sections that tried to justify myself after the apology. You understand? So I just wrote my dad a very brief email and said, I'm very sorry that I responded to you like that. I love you, I'm sorry. Very brief. Actually, let me tell you this part. During the reflection, I also went out to watch television because television is a great way to stop reflection. And I'm watching the television, this thing is still haunting me. And I remembered a few years ago, somebody told me about an online confessional. So I Google. Google is God. I Google. And I find this website that's a Catholic online confessional, and I click on it, and I go there, and it's this beautiful website where it asks questions and you check boxes, and it basically takes you down through this very sort of narrowing process so you can locate what's really going on there. So I go all the way through this process. Yes, I did that, I did this, yes. It comes down, and it tells me exactly what I had done, and I was like, yes, that's it. And then it said, click here. So I clicked, and it said, say 8 Hail Marys and 2 Lord's Prayers. Do you know what I did? I did 8 Hail Marys, and I did 2 Lord's Prayers. But before I did that, what went through my mind is, oh, this is a bunch of nonsense. And it says, you are a nonsense kind of guy. Why don't you just try something new? Rosh Hashanah. It's the new year. Put your ego, your arrogance, your prejudgments about Catholicism, about confession, about Hail Marys, and just do it. It's not logical, but what if it works? So I did 8 Hail Marys. I'd never done a Hail frickin' Mary in my life. Except when Russell Wilson's. So I did the 8 Hail Marys, did the Lord's Prayer, and after doing them, there was a kind of cleansing. Something happened. I get it. I get the rosaries in every tradition. And then a little voice spoke and said, okay, now you've cleaned your soul out. Go send the email, and tomorrow go back to your dad's and Yom Kippur. Make atonement. Make amends. That's why I call this the Jewish 12-step program. I sent the email, and Dad got it. Sheryl and I went back the next day, walked in. He had a big smile on his face. We hugged each other. And he said, it's okay. It's good to get pissed off every once in a while. That is the idea behind the Jewish New Year. The reason they are celebrating tonight and for the next 10 days up to Yom Kippur is because they have built into their religion, into their culture, the idea that we're all in process. That we're all in the co-creative process. In fact, the Hebrew story is constructed in such a way in Genesis chapters 1 through 3, the very beginning of the Hebrew story, has 2 creation stories. Did you know that? The first one is God creates the heavens and the earth in 7 days, right? Rests on the Sabbath day. God puts all the raw materials out here. Everything's there. But then in Genesis chapter 22, it has a second creation story. It's not a mistake, but it's very different. In the second creation story, it says God created Adam and Eve, put them in the garden, and said, now it's your business to take care of the garden. Be fruitful and multiply, till the garden, be stewards of the earth. So for the Hebrews, what that means is this: there's 2 creators. There's the infinite creator who creates the raw material, including you and me. But then the Hebrew version is that God then puts we, us humans, on the earth made in God's image and says, now that I've created the raw material, it's up to you to create what goes on this earth. And just because you're not finished yet, we're going to throw a holiday in there that allows you to assess your creative process every year, beginning with Rosh Hashanah and going to Yom Kippur. So we're all in this creative process. But from a depth psychological point of view, you don't have to wait next year to do this holy day. You can do this 10-day process when? Anytime. Anytime you know that the old year, something old has got to pass away, you got to let it go. It's time to do some reflection, to shut up for a while, to find out what I need to do, make amends, and start the new year. I want to close with Eddie Watkins Jr.'s Facebook post, because he went through the same process. We closed with this. He's in the grocery store, right? Backwoods of Florida. Confederate flags and Confederate bumper stickers everywhere. And there, standing in front of him, if you can picture this little ma-pa grocery store, my parents had one when I was growing up, dressed in camouflage pants, sandals, hunting knife, and buying a 6-pack of beer, this dude. I automatically sized him up as a redneck Republican racist, 3 R's. shifted from my music director, spiritual songwriter, into a different mind. Part 2. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur took place in a few seconds. Suddenly, this beautiful brown child, maybe 5 years old or so, came up to this guy in front of me and wrapped her arms around his leg. Looked up at him with the most gorgeous, loving brown eyes and said, "Daddy, can I have your wallet?" In that instant, I got to look in the mirror. And what do mirrors do? They reflect. Not everyone would do that. I got to look in the mirror and ask, you know what he asked? Who's the racist? Moments later, a black woman and a smaller child joined them in line. Here was an American family living life in a poor town in Central Florida. I decided to do a message on the Michael Jackson song next week. Anybody guess what song? Man in the Mirror. And mirrors do what? Reflect. The universe, and this is his closing line, he said, the universe is doing the work for me. And all I have to do is pay attention. And here's the last line. My preconceived notions were shattered and my reality changed. That's the Jewish holiday of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. He and I exchanged some emails. I wrote him, I shared that post, and I don't do a lot on Facebook, but I shared that post because to me that is one of the things Facebook can really be good for. And I told him I did, and I said, I don't think you're a racist. I think you're prejudiced, just like every one of us. We all have, what's the word prejudice mean? Prejudgments. Now, I'm sure there's no one in this room that has judgments about redneck racist Republicans. Can I see it? No, you don't have to show your hands. I told the first service if I were in a conservative Baptist church, I would flip it because this is the human condition. It has nothing to do with a party. It has to do with the human soul in the co-creative process, you understand? But until we're capable of realizing that we're all in process, even those of us here at the Center for Spiritual Living, we're in co-creative process. And our prejudices or our prejudgments need to be reformed. So we can look at the old year, say, that's the way I saw it then, but now I'm going to stop, reflect, change my mind, make amends, and enter the new year. Let's just do a quick kind of sealing meditation. Take a breath. Infinite One, we thank you that you have built into our very souls and into the very fabric of the universe principles for our evolution. Give us the grace and the wisdom to experience what Eddie Watkins Jr. so beautifully experienced and shared with the world. What a brave soul. Make us each brave souls to open our hearts honestly, to let go of the old and to move into the new. And it's my prayer as I close here that I bless this new location, this new year for the Center for Spiritual Living. May this place be blessed with so many people who will come in and find the way to co-create their soul's evolution, and so it is. Blessings on you. Have a good day.